Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Second Unitarian Church. I am Susan Heyer, a member of the church's Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. In response to COVID-19, we at 2U are doing our part in slowing the spread of the coronavirus. We are continuing to meet virtually using Zoom. We may have some bumps along the way, and we appreciate all the grace everyone extends in this moment. Special thanks to our amazing team taking care of all the technology. You will notice that there's a chat feed available for you to interact with. You're welcome to use this to say hello to one another and share your joys and concerns when we reach that time in the service. When we would traditionally sing together and read things in unison, you're encouraged to do so as well. Even though you are on mute, our voices echo through the world, so we might just hear one another if we listen closely and sing with our full spirit. As things continue to change, we will be paying close attention to the recommendations of public health officials and respond as quickly as possible. At this time, we recognize physical distancing as an act of love and protection. We especially welcome new members this morning. During this time of pandemic, finding a new community and making new connections can be challenging. Please know that we are excited to have you and look forward to getting to know you. If you're new to us today, you're welcome to note that in our chat. Our worship today is led by Bob Sadler, along with worship associate Janice Dashwick, and chalice lighters Julia and Ben Cedarquist. Our music is provided by Gail Gallagher, Carl Kennedy, and music director Amanda Thomas. Our tech team are Epiphany Paris, Christy Grant, Eric Schutzler, Harris McKee, John Hook, and David Martin. I have a couple of announcements for you this morning. Next Sunday, September 13th, will be our annual water communion service. So everyone just throw water at your screens. No, I'm kidding. As we are not coming together in person, things will be quite different. Reverend Jason requests that you send him a 10-second or shorter video of you drinking water, watering your plants, jumping in the water, having a water balloon fight with your family, a video of water that you love. You can email this video or text it to him. When taking a video with your phone, please turn your phone sideways, as horizontal videos are much easier to edit together. And please send these in by Tuesday, September 8th. We need 80 SAC suppers to support the night ministry on 2 upcoming dates, Thursday, September 24th, and Thursday, October 1st. You can prepare SAC suppers for one date or both. These SAC suppers should be delivered to you on the assigned Thursday in the late afternoon. You will not have to enter the church. You can pull up in front of the church and someone will pick up your SAC suppers. All 80 SAC suppers for that specific date will then be delivered to the new night ministry location. The night ministry is committed to ending homelessness while also meeting the immediate needs of people experiencing homelessness in Chicago. If you're interested in this night ministry event or have any questions, you can contact Sammy or John. Their information and details about what should be in the SAC suppers can be found in your order of service. Please save the date of October 18th as the day we will celebrate calling Reverend Jason as our settled minister. We will have our installation service during our regular church service time, though expect that the service will be a bit longer than a regular Sunday service. You can find more information and additional announcements in your order of service. I now welcome Janice Dashwick to lead our call to worship.
We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but by the values that we share. Whether you are joining us for the first time or for the 1000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. Whatever your race, whomever you love, whichever way you move in the world, however much money is in your pockets, you are welcome here. I invite you now to take a deep breath in and out. Center yourself. And as the music begins, let us enter into our worship service together.
That's what they used back then when they had a boat to mend. It did not hide the cracks, it made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of those jagged lines make me more beautiful and worth a higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls I was made long ago. I have some cracks you can see how they shine of gold.
In just a moment, Ben and Julia will light our chalice, the symbol of our faith. We light this chalice this morning with these words by Katie Gelfand, titled, "The End is the Beginning." We call forth the life of our faith by igniting our chalice. The spark of new beginnings invites us to a sacred space, to reflect where we have been and where we are going, even knowing that this particular flame will intentionally end with a ritual extinguishing. We fear not its end. For we know with brave hearts that from every ending in our lives, we are sent forth to make a new beginning.
Please join me in singing hymn number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 You gotta sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing, oh Lord. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You gotta dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 You gotta pray. You gotta pray when the Spirit says pray. You gotta pray when the Spirit says pray. When the Spirit says pray, you gotta pray, oh Lord. You gotta pray when the Spirit says pray. 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 You gotta help. You gotta help when the Spirit says help. You gotta help when the Spirit says help. When the Spirit says help, you gotta help, oh Lord. You gotta help when the Spirit says help. 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 You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
Please join me in reciting our covenant. The words will now appear on your screen. We covenant to build a community that challenges us to grow and empowers us to honor the truth within ourselves. We will be generous with our gifts and honest in our communication, holding faithful to a love that embraces both diversity and conflict. Called by our living tradition, we will nurture spirituality with a vision of the eternal, living out our inner convictions through struggles for justice and acts of compassion.
Please join me in singing Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning, everyone. It is now time for our story for all ages. So if your kids are not in the room yet, it's a good time to get them to join you. Today we're talking about homelessness, and so we're going to be reading a book called On Our Street. And Audrey Martin will be helping me this morning. When you venture out into the world around us. You may notice things that are new to you. The world is filled with unique people who live in a variety of different ways. Sometimes people are happy in these different situations, and sometimes they are not. It's okay to ask questions when you do not understand the way another person is living.
On the walk to school today, I saw a man sleeping on the street. He had all his belongings around him. Why would he sleep outside?
That person is sleeping on the street because he does not have a permanent place to live. That person is homeless. People who are homeless live on the street, or they live in community shelters. Sometimes they move between shelters or between shelters and the street. People who are homeless are often in that situation because of poverty. Poverty is a big problem in our world today.
What is it like to live on the streets?
It's hard to live on the streets. People there are exposed to all kinds of weather, and they can become sick when they can't keep dry and warm. People who are homeless are often hungry. Even if they have enough money to buy food, they don't have a place to cook meals. They may feel lonely or judged by others, and they may be treated poorly or be victims of violence.
Why does this happen? Why do people have to sleep on the street?
There are lots of reasons why people are homeless. Owning or renting a home is expensive, and some people can't afford to do this. Some have illness or disability that makes it difficult for them to work and make money or to take care of themselves. Some homeless people are born into families who cannot take care of them. Others are born into families where they are hurt and neglected. They don't feel safe at home, so they choose not to live there. Sometimes people are homeless because they've lost their homes to a natural disaster like a fire or flood, or they are new to a community and are having difficulty finding a home.
Are there children who are homeless?
Yes, people of all ages can be homeless. Young children who are homeless may live with their families in community shelters. These shelters provide families with food, warm clothing, and basic services. Some families even live in their cars. Older children are sometimes homeless because they have run away from their homes.
Why would someone run away from their home?
Some children live in homes where they are treated poorly or abused. They run away because they don't feel safe there. Children might also run away if they're neglected, if they do not feel important to their parents. Sometimes parents cannot raise their children themselves and give them up. These children become orphans. They may end up in the community homes or in temporary homes called foster homes. Children who run away and live on the street often feel like it is a better choice than living with their families or in homes where they do not feel loved or safe.
How can I help children who are homeless or unsafe?
There are many ways to help children in need. You and your family can donate resources to places in your community that help kids, like family shelters or boys and girls clubs. You can also help raise awareness of children in need by choosing a charity that helps children and then organizing a fundraising activity at your school or your church, your temple, your mosque, or your synagogue. If you think a child you know might need help, talk to an adult that you trust, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a school counselor, or your minister.
Was the man I saw sleeping on the street homeless as a child too?
He may have been, but he may not have been. He may have grown up in a loving and supportive family, but as an adult, his situation changed. For example, he may have developed a physical or mental illness. When someone has an illness, it is very difficult to cope with daily life. Sometimes people are too sick to go to work, and then they cannot pay their bills or buy food. In these situations, people's health challenges lead to poverty and then to homelessness.
Are, are homeless people the only ones who live in poverty?
No, being homeless is only one kind of poverty. There are other kinds of poverty that are harder to see. like when people are not able to go to school or to the doctor.
Don't all kids go to school?
No, not all kids are able to go to school, especially in developing countries in Africa, Asia, and South America. Even in more prosperous countries, some kids do not receive a good education, and not all children have access to important classroom tools like computers and the internet. Many are unable to go on to college, university, or advanced job training. Without a good education, it can be difficult to get a good job when you're older. When people do not receive a proper education, this can be a sign of poverty.
I go to the I go to my doctor whenever I get sick. Why doesn't everyone do that?
Not everyone is able to go see a doctor for regular checkups to make sure they stay healthy. When you are sick, you may need medicine that costs money, or you may need to travel to see a special doctor, or take time off of school or work for appointments. Not everyone can afford to do these things, but being able to see a doctor when you are sick is an essential service. If children are not able to receive good health care, they may grow up with a physical or mental illness. When people do not receive proper health care, this is also a sign of poverty. Families who are new to a community or a country often find it difficult to get the things they need. Without support from people in their community, they may not be able to do such things as find a doctor who is taking new patients. This is especially true for refugees.
What are refugees?
Refugees are people who have been forced to leave their homes and settle in a different country where the language, culture, and customs are usually different from their own. This may happen because of a natural disaster or war. Refugees leave their homes because they don't feel safe, and everyone deserves to feel safe. Feeling safe is a fundamental human right.
What is a fundamental human right?
Fundamental human rights are things that every human being deserves. Everyone deserves a home that they feel safe in. No one should have to go hungry. Everyone deserves to have access to schools and doctors. The United Nations is an organization that was started to bring peace to all nations of the world. The UN wrote a special document that declared what rights everyone in the world should have. It is called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They also created a document that defines the rights of children specifically, called the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child.
What can we do to help people who live in poverty?
One of the most important things you can do is care. Ask questions. Remember that everyone matters, and we can work together to help those living in our community. A lot of the work that needs to be done to end poverty is complicated, but you can talk to the adults in your life about it. You can talk about ways to celebrate people's differences, to help people feel proud of their backgrounds and abilities. And you can talk about ways that schools and organizations in your community can support families who need help. There are some things that you and your family can do that will make an immediate difference. You can donate food, drop off toys, drop off some clothing. You can introduce yourself to your neighbors, with your parents, of course, to other kids who maybe you don't know. You can practice random acts of kindness to people living on the street, just giving them a smile or a sandwich. You can support refugees in your community by volunteering for them. And you can celebrate diversity in your community by learning about a cultural celebration you didn't know much about. That is the end of our story today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you can put some of these suggestions into place with your family.
Every year, we all make a commitment, a pledge, to support the ministry of our church. In addition to this contribution, each Sunday we take a collection so that we can share with those doing justice beyond our church community. While we aren't able to come together in person, you can still share your resources. To make your contribution, you can send a text and follow prompts. We will have the number on your screen as the music plays for the offertory. For the month of September, we are sharing our plate with One Northside. This morning, we will hear some words from Doherty Hester.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Doherty Hester, and I am a housing organizer at One North Side. And I have to say that today's story for all ages is especially relevant to this time. To say that owning or renting is expensive and some people cannot afford it has never been truer. With 16,000 homeless CPS students before the COVID-19 crisis and schools starting remotely this coming Tuesday, the homelessness crisis is even more frightening. One North Side, as most of you know, is a community organization that works on the issues most important to our community members. We are a community leader-led organization that consists of 5 ongoing issue teams: affordable housing, economic justice, police accountability, mental health justice, and education. An extremely important addition this year is the work of a census team that was put together that is working diligently to assure that all community members get counted, and especially immigrant families and Northside residents with language barriers. These are people who often don't get counted, causing them to go unrecognized in their neighborhoods, in the city, in the state, and even federally. If you have not already filled out your census, please do so. I believe you have until September 30th this year. Every 2 years, we host an organization-wide convention. In past years, we've had as many as 900 people attend in person. Of course, this year will be different. This year, we have titled the convention From Crisis to Opportunity. 2020's convention will be held on Sunday, September 13th from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. It will be virtual with an opening session taking stock of the moment we are in, sharing our vision of where we are headed and how we will get there. Action together to win the fair tax question on the November ballot, a critical campaign to secure funding for schools and other essential services throughout the state. Then we will move into workshops that focus on how our campaigns tackle the intertwining systems of racism and capitalism, and how to take action to make sure everyone is housed, has health care, feels safe in their community, and that we have a government that works for all of the people. We would love to have as many of you there as possible, showing the power of community, the power of love, and the power of people. Please take a minute to open the link in your chat. In it, you will find more details and an additional link for registration. Thank you.
Now, I invite you to join me in reading our offertory words. The words are printed in your order of service and are on the screen. This church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the larger world around us. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received. invite you now into the spirit of prayer and meditation. Let's start by breathing together. Take a breath in and out. We begin in thanks, thankful for the breath in our lungs, the beauty of our earth, and the strength of this community. We hold in our hearts those who care for family and ill health, those who live with grief or chronic pain, those struggling with addiction or illness, seen and unseen. We are with you. For parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is caring for children, we are with you. We pray for our neighbors in prison, for those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty. We are with you. We pray for all those living in harm's way. We pray for our planet and commit to work that will lead us away from the harms of climate chaos. We pray that wisdom, compassion, and empathy guide the leaders of our world. May they and we be instruments of a just and lasting peace. Our lives are blessed by those who knowingly, with curiosity and courage, face their final days. For those locked in concentration camps at the border, held in cages and inhumane conditions, for those in ICE detention centers here in Chicago, we are with you and commit to doing more. For those struggling with fear and anxiety right now, we offer our prayers of comfort and care. For those who face the loss of a job, financial resources, and security right now, we offer solidarity and a commitment to share what we can. For those struggling with the impact of isolation, we promise to reach out with love. Into this shared silence, I invite you now to speak the name of anyone you wish to lift up into the loving support of this community. With our deepest compassion, let us hold in our hearts those unnamed and named, those remembered and those forgotten. Let it be so. Amen and blessed be. At this time, I will light 2 candles, one representing the joys and celebrations we are experiencing, and another representing the concerns and sorrows we are holding. We hold all of these joys, celebrations, sorrows, and struggles close to our hearts. Janice Dashwick will now share our first reading.
Our first reading is We Are Whole by Beth Lefevre. We are whole even in the broken places, even where it hurts. We are whole even in the broken places where fear impedes our full engagement with life, where self-doubt corrupts our self-love, where shame makes our faces hot and our souls cold. We are whole even in those places where perfectionism blunts the joy of full immersion into person, place, activity, where good enough does not reside except in our silent longings, where our gaps must be fast filled with substance, accomplishment, or frenzied activity, lest they gape open and disgust. We are whole where we would doubt our own goodness, richness, fullness, and depth, where we would doubt our own significance, our own profoundness. We are whole even in our fragility, even when we feel fragmented, alone, insubstantial, insufficient. We are whole even as we are in process, even as we stumble, even as we pick ourselves up again. For we are whole. We are whole.
Our second reading this morning is We Can Change the World by Dorothy Day. What we would like to do is change the world. Make it a little simpler for people to feed, clothe, and shelter themselves. By fighting for better conditions, by crying out unceasingly for the rights of the workers, the poor, the destitute. We can, to a certain extent, change the world. We can work for the oasis, the little cell of joy and peace in a harried world. We can throw our pebble in the pond and be confident that its ever-widening circle will reach around the world.
I stand and look out at the beach, the endless blue sky, the sound of seals, and I find a certain peace, serenity in the crashing of the waves, held in a certain stillness, a voice inside says, I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. I'm more than the wave. I am the ocean. They said just be in the moment. But what does that mean if the moment is nothing but fear? Fear of the next moment. The same advice for years and years. The master appeared, but the student wasn't ready. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. I'm more than the wave. I am the ocean. will shine. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. I'm more than the wave. I'm more than the wave. I'm more than the wave. I am the ocean.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Bob Sadler, and I'm a worship associate at the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Monterey Peninsula here in California. I'm really happy to join your service this morning because I want to say thank you. It was about 12 years ago that we got a call from our daughter, Jordan, who was telling us about this wonderful Second Unitarian Church in Chicago. And she was so enthusiastic that we decided to try the Unitarian Universalist Church near us. Well, we fell in love with the congregation here, and it's become a big part of our lives ever since. And it's through Jordan that Laura McKee saw what we were doing with a homeless project here and asked if I would share the story with you in a sermon this morning. The story really begins back around 1980 when I had an hour or so to photograph along the Connecticut River in Middletown, Connecticut. I couldn't really see much through the low-hanging fog that morning, but I could hear this rhythmic splash of the oars as they hit the still water in perfect harmony. It was the Wesleyan crew, and it was practicing as I stood patiently next to this ancient view camera that I had with a black cloth over my head, waiting for a boat to come by. The picture would be beautiful. The crew, the shell, the oars, all reflected in the still river and surrounded by a gray mist with the fall color just across the river on the opposite bank. So I tried not to be distracted by the squeaky noise off to my left along the bike path I was standing on. But I peeked out from under the cloth and I saw that a homeless man was approaching me with his shopping carriage. I didn't really want any distraction, so I quickly got back under my cloth. And the squeaking got louder and louder, and then it stopped. And I felt the man right next to me. But I stayed focused. And after a long silence, he said, "Wow, that's a fancy camera you've got there. You must be a great artist." I didn't answer. I just tried to keep my concentration. "Well, you know, I'm an artist too," he continued. "I spend all day at the library writing novels. They're all right here in my shopping cart." That made me come out from under my cover, and I looked, and there was a whole basket of handwritten novels piled high. "Wow," I said, "that's impressive," and I quickly got back under my cloth. "Well," he said, "I call myself an artist, but the other day I realized I'm not really an artist. I'm just an observer with a pencil." "I suppose," he said, "you have the same problem. I guess the question for you is, are you an artist or are you just another observer with a camera? Do you make art or do you just take pictures?" There was another long pause, and then I heard the wheels squeaking as he drifted off to my right. After a minute, I came out from under the cloth again and watched him as he drifted off into the fog. He was just barely visible, and he looked back over his shoulder. with this gentle smile. Against the fog, his shock of white hair, his beautiful face, and his red wool shirt composed a magnificent portrait. But I wasn't ready to make art. I was too busy taking a picture. In a matter of minutes, a man I was trying to avoid sparked a renewal in me. He had become a mentor. He was absolutely right. I needed to move from taking pictures to making art. Now, I had little time to be an artist. I had demands of family and career, but I felt renewed anyway. And just as Mary Oliver said in her poem, The Journey, I heard a new voice, which I slowly recognized as my own and began. So I began to stop hunting for pictures and open myself up to the world, letting images find me, and began to express what I feel in those images. My job brought us to Monterey County, California, and I turned my photographic eyes to the Big Sur landscape. And as I mentioned earlier, we joined the Unitarian Universalist Church here on the Monterey Peninsula. Soon, I found that our organization, along with 25 other religious organizations, support a program for homeless men and women. We host the homeless for a hot meal and overnight stay in the sanctuary 2 or 3 nights a month. And we were doing an annual fundraiser for the program, and so I was asked to take the pictures to help with the fundraising. Well, I wanted to help, but I hadn't done any portrait photography. I didn't know how to use artificial lighting or a studio. But that 30-year-old memory of my missed portrait of that homeless man just compelled me to say, okay, yes, I will. So I loaded the car with newly purchased lighting equipment and headed for the church, where the men would be having dinner. And I sat down, I ate with them, I told them what I wanted to do. They were really enthusiastic and insisted on helping me unpack and set up the studio. I was way, way over my head. I had no idea what to do with that equipment. But one of the men, as we were unpacking the boxes, began directing us. He said, "Oh, that's a light stand. Put it over there." And then, "Oh, that's an umbrella. Put that on top of the strobe light." And I looked at him. I said, "Chris, you seem to know how to do this. Did you work for a portrait photographer?" "No," he said, I have a master's in fine art in photography from Rochester Polytech Institute. And that evening, he helped me set up and he taught me everything I needed to know to get started in fine art portraiture. And when Chris asked me what I wanted the portraits to look like, I said I wanted to mimic the look of this work by Yusuf Karsh, who made portraits of all the most famous people of the last century. And he laughed. He said, "Oh, that was my thesis." And 3 hours later, my style was beginning to look a lot like Karsh. So this is the first image we made. This is a portrait of Chris, of course. Now, the year before, Chris was the CEO of a startup in Silicon Valley. He put all his time, energy, and money into the business, and he risked it all and took this drug, Adderall, to help keep him working the long extra hours to make this company successful. And it was ever so close to becoming successful. But then he lost it all in the recession that began in 1987. In 1997, he was broke. His wife and his child had left him, and he was addicted. The only thing left that he had was a Mercedes, which, while driving under the influence, he totaled in an accident here in Monterey as he was driving down to Los Angeles to apply for another job. And when he was finally released from jail, he had nothing, no car, no savings, no money, nothing. And so he just walked out into a homeless camp in the woods, and he stayed there for 6 weeks before finding his way to the program at our church. And that was the day we met. So we did the portrait, and he loved it. And the next day, he used the portrait to reach out to his contacts. And a week later, he received some money and an airline ticket and ended up working for a company in Denver. I ran into Chris 2 years later at a coffee shop here in town. He's living back here and able to work remotely. He has joint custody of his son and says he's happier than he's ever been in his life. He said that church program literally saved his life. But I'm amazed at how often renewal comes to people after a traumatic loss like that. As I was beginning to make portraits of homeless people in my spare time and hear their stories, I was also facilitating workshops for high-tech executives to introduce more empathy into their work lives. In those workshops, in groups of 12 people, people would share the defining moments of their lives and careers. Almost every one of them talked about divorces, illnesses, deaths, dramatic failures that led to an extremely difficult and depressing time, but then followed by some kind of mentor who helps them jumpstart a new life, often one that's much better than what they had before, just like Chris had described to me. I kept working on the portraits. I made a portrait of Harold, who had been at that point sober for a year and was about to start a full-time job after working his way up in a retail shop. Everyone who saw this portrait thought he must be a famous fashion designer. I worked with Percy, who came out of 15 years in the military without a skill that would enable him to make more than a minimum wage. He didn't dress up for this portrait. He always dresses in a suit. I dress for the job I want, he says. But he dissolved in tears, describing how upset his mother back in Louisiana would be if she found out that he was homeless. I worked with Olive, a well-known physician in town. His career began to dissolve as he became obsessed by a calling to explore the works of religious leaders. He spends, to this day, all his time in the public library on a computer, researching and writing. Last month, he told me, everything looks bad, but it's going to be all right. Just love one another and keep your integrity. That's what they all say. He was communicating his love when we made this portrait. Soon after, at an IHELP dinner, I was standing in the supper line in front of me, this new guy, I'd never seen him before, turned and asked me if I was the photographer. I said, yes, I am. And he said, well, do you know what they're saying about you? I said, no. Well, they're saying that it's good luck to have a picture taken by you. Really? I said, why is that? Because if you didn't know, 8 of the first 10 men you were working with those portraits, have great jobs and now have a place to live. And we don't have a history of getting many people placed like that. Well, I said, it must just be a coincidence. Coincidence, he said. No, it's not a coincidence, he said. Well, is it because they're using the pictures to apply for jobs and housing? I asked. No, he said. Well, then what do you think the reason is? Well, he said, when they get up in the morning, they reach under their pillow for the picture that you gave them instead of a mirror. And they look at it and they say to themselves, hey, this is a good looking guy. He deserves a job and a house. See, you make them feel better about themselves, and that helps them in interviews. Really? I said. Yeah, really. And that's why I want my picture taken tonight. I want some of that luck. Can we do that? Aha, I said to myself. This isn't just an art project. This is a social justice project. This is a project that could shape hearts and minds. So after supper, I did a portrait of Carlos. I gave him the portrait the next day, and sure enough, he beat all the odds. He was in a job and a place to live within a month. As word got around about the portraits, we started getting requests to use the prints to advocate for more fundraising and help for the homeless. So using Kickstarter, we were able to raise enough money to launch a really beautiful exhibit called Inherent Worth and Dignity. It has portraits, a book, and video stories. We used the Inherent Worth and Dignity exhibit to raise money and to help keep our program going, and especially when federal government funds were pulled out back with when funding just fell apart. We were able to advocate for a similar program for women, which is now up and running. We are doing portraits of homeless women as well, and the experience is very much the same. The recovery rate has been very impressive. Fewer of the women will allow us to use the portraits publicly because they are working, at least part-time, at minimum wage. They can't afford a house, but their employers don't know it. The exhibit has been shown now in 20 galleries and religious institutions over the years. The Weston Gallery in Carmel, one of the best fine art galleries in the world, showed our homeless portraits next to Karsh portraits of the most famous people of the last century. Our portraits were next to Karsh's portraits without any explanation, as if they were featuring the work of two famous portrait photographers. Tourists would come in from all over the world every day, and they saw this exhibit. They would light up with great excitement when they saw portraits of people like Kennedy and Churchill and Muhammad Ali, and they would look at one of my portraits and say, oh yeah, I can't remember his name, but he is famous. I think he's an author or a basketball player or a banker. After a while, the gallery staff would come by to answer questions. And they would say very casually, yes, that is Bill Clinton. But no, the guy next to him isn't a banker. He's a homeless man who lives in the area. Total shock. What? That can't be. Why? He can't be homeless? And sometimes the portrait that they were looking at was of a man who has been eavesdropping a few feet away, right there in the gallery. And so the owner says, well, you can ask him. This is Reed Bennett. He is the man in that picture. And Reed would tell his story to the person that was interested. He was on vacation in 2006 in Wyoming. He and his partner were hit in a head-on collision. His partner died. And Reed woke up in a hospital a week later. It took him 6 full months to be ready for work again. His job had been given to someone else, and the recession had started. He was soon homeless, without a job, and without insurance. He was homeless for 6 years until a retired executive who saw this exhibit in Phoenix was so inspired by Reed's face, that kind of noble, but there's a sadness in it. And he wanted to help Reed personally by getting involved to get him back to a better life. He counseled Reed long distance and helped him start a new business, driving elderly people who could no longer drive their own cars to appointments. Reed now makes enough money to live with 4 other men in Carmel, just a few blocks, ironically, from the Weston Gallery. He has health insurance. He's got several health conditions now under control. He was able to get a car of his own. He's now very busy. And he speaks with me at many talks about homelessness. He says, to have someone look at you and see a good person can renew your life. I wonder if our ability to see the inherent worth and dignity in someone, particularly someone who has experienced a traumatic loss, can trigger a renewal. We've done portraits of 150 homeless men and women now. Over half of them have an income and a place to live. That's 3 times the normal rate of recovery. The camera has provided a unique opportunity for me to deeply explore the life map of another person's face and to hear their stories and to recognize a moment when the defensive filters have just disappeared and a facet of their worth and dignity appear in their face and hands. To be able to record that moment and play it back is a joy that sometimes sparks a much needed renewal. We believe in the inherent worth and dignity of each person. It was what attracted me to the UU denomination. Could it be that our ability and commitment to find that worth and dignity and play it back for the owner may be the beginning of a major renewal? And if it is, how can we do that without a camera? May it be so.
Please join us in singing hymn number 119, Once to Every Soul and Nation. Once to every soul and nation comes the moment to decide. In the strife of truth with falsehood, for the good of evil side, then to stand with truth is noble when we share its wretched crust. Ere that cause bring fame and profit, and 'tis prosperous to be just. Though the cause of evil prosper, yet 'tis truth alone is strong. Though its portion be the scaffold, and upon the throne be wrong, then it is the brave one chooses, while the coward stands aside, till a multitude make virtue of the faith they have denied.
I invite you to cross your hands over your heart and hear these words of benediction. Spirit of life, today may we keep in our hearts people without homes for whatever reason. May we be able to give the gift of seeing the inherent worth and dignity of these beloveds, no matter how they look or present. Even as we share our love, may we continue to fight against the systemic oppressions and problems that landed these people in dire straits in the first place. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.